5. So, meeting to order. I want to make sure they hear me. There we go. All right. It is July 14th, 2020. It is our special meeting at 5:45 p.m. for the Manatee County School Board. And I would call this meeting to order. We have 4 out of our 5 board members present. With that, I will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the
Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I'm going to start with the approval of the agenda. The chair has found good cause to amend the agenda to include all items listed under agenda amendments on the July 14, 2020 agenda, updated July 14, 2020, and posted to the district website, manateeschools.net. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right, I've got a motion
Second.
and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Can I ask, Dr. Hopes, did you hit the button?
I having trouble logging in.
Okay, we'll just do a voice
It's the
vote.
virus. It's the virus.
Okay, all right. I'm going to just do a voice vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. I'm going to move forward to our new business item, our reason for being here today. And that is approval of the plan for reopening of schools for the 2020-2021 school year. Madam Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I do. I recommend the approval of the plan for reopening of the schools for the 2021 school year as presented.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Dr. Hopes and a second from Reverend Golden. As is customary, the person that makes the motion typically has first chance to make comment. Dr. Hopes, you made a motion. Would you like to begin?
Yes, Madam Chair. Members, I believe that the superintendent has spent considerable time. We've workshopped this. We've had individual meetings with the superintendent. We went into this process with, I believe, a sound and valid plan. It has now been adjusted to be in compliance with the Commissioner of Education's order, which does provide the flexibility. I think the superintendent and her staff have done an outstanding job of listening to parents, listening to our staff, our classroom educators, and I believe this plan has the flexibility to meet a majority of the diverse desires among parents. There is the option of your child attending school 5 days a week. The plan anticipates being able to provide adequate social distancing as well as personal protection for students and staff. For those families who are in a situation where they feel they want to mitigate the risk as much as possible, there is the option for 100% e-learning. For those families who feel that a period of time during the week that their child will benefit from direct interaction with their classroom educators, that option is available. I think that the hybrid and online learning option of being able to place a student in the classroom remotely, to be able to interact in basically full duplex mode, to be able to raise their hand electronically, to ask questions, to interact with their peers, provides that additional safety measurement. I believe that the superintendent and Mr. Wagner have outlined operational changes to provide for the cleaning and disinfecting of all of our facilities on a regular basis. And therefore, I ask my colleagues' support in presenting this plan with our approval to the Department of Education. I have some degree of confidence that it will be approved. It does provide the flexibility for this board to make the daily decisions as needed based on our partnership with the Department of Health and watching the incidence and prevalence of this virus. So it is for those reasons that I do make this motion, and I commend the superintendent. And actually, I commend each one of us because we've been actively engaged in the process. We've gotten hundreds of emails from our neighbors and our friends and our staff, and I know we're all trying to answer all those emails, but the message has been heard. And I think that a testament to this proposal is that other districts around the state are actually copying what we're doing. And I think that says something for the deliberations and the sustainability of this plan. Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask for your support.
I appreciate that. I think Reverend Golden seconded it. Reverend Golden, would you like to add anything?
Yes, I would, but before we move forward, the superintendent simply made a recommendation that we accept her plan.
That is my understanding. Is there
Well-
anything else you'd like to add?
I would,
Sure.
only because that's just the normal process, and then you're able to go into deliberation and discussion. I would like to speak about a couple of things, because I have made a couple of tweaks since our last workshop. However, I have conveyed that, so I would like to talk about that. But before I go into that discussion, I do have Ms. Larkin on a Teams meeting listening with us, Melissa Skinner Larkin with Centerstone. I want you to know that one of the things spoken about at our last workshop was that we invoke some sort of a community plan to mitigate the virus. We had Dr. Bency from the local health department come, and she did appeal to the community to change the direction of the incline of the virus. I took that advice very seriously, and yesterday I did have a meeting with local officials in our community. Dr. Bency was on the call. I had Sheriff Wells on the call. I had Jackie Dulesky with the CEO, of course, of the chamber. Who else? I had so many. I had Sherry Courier, of course, the county administrator, and we all were on there talking about what measures can we make collectively as a community to change the direction and change the spread. Because we all know that the virus is not leaving us in the immediate near future. We have to collectively decide how we're going to move forward and live within those means and continue to thrive as a community, but on a safe and healthy mode. I don't know that I personally need the president or the governor to tell me to follow the CDC criteria. We can't have those people come and impose it. We can't have those people come and lock down our community again. But we do know that we adults in the community can make a conscious decision to follow these guidelines so that we are able to navigate and open our schools again and have a health learning environment, not only for our students, but for our employees. Because even with this plan and proposal, we all know that if we have positive cases and it increases, we could end up having to close schools temporarily or for longer extended amounts of time. So we are working on a collective plan on how we can get the information out. Obviously, we've got to do some things differently because information is out there and it's not working. So we are working with different leaders in the community. We have 1 week to come up with a formulated plan so that we have time to execute it before our children come back into the building. So I do have Ms. Larkin Skinner on the line. She was the only one, I believe, on here right now able to attend. So I did want to give you an opportunity to possibly ask questions or get her insight before I continue with my recommended changes or discussion of the plan if you wanted to do so.
Sure, let's hear from hers. Ms. Skinner?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not sure what you want to hear from me, but I'm going to let you know from my perspective kind of what's important. I think Superintendent Saunders' idea for pulling that group together yesterday was really smart. That is a group of folks who can make things happen. We talked a lot about campaigns targeting specific audiences so that we can drive down the infection rate of COVID-19, which at this point is unacceptably high and going in the wrong direction. The other thing that I wanted to point out, because behavioral health is my specialty, the ongoing impact currently to people's mental health with regard to anxiety and depression, and of course, using substances and suicide is challenging and expected that it will get worse. So, our commitment to the community is to do everything we can to address those issues. And certainly one of the most important groups of folks that we can do that with is our youth attending our schools. So we are going to be doing that and working to make sure that our youth and their families have the support they need to try to get through this. It's new for everybody. And I know this is a bit overused at this point, but we're all in it together and want to make sure that we help each other out.
I appreciate that. As a parent who went through us having to close the schools and go to e-learning and not get to do her normal routine, it dramatically changed her behavior. So, I can only imagine what our schools are going to be like, our students having been through this. I think we're absolutely going to need that support and that help. So I appreciate that. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I just want you to know that we're fortunate to partner with Centerstone. They will be providing many of our counseling and supportive measures for next year. You will be seeing a contract coming before you shortly with that continuation of support. And we know that there have been many lives and many families that have really been impacted in a negative way. All of us have been affected, but many have been impacted in a severely negative way. And, there is no perfect solution. And I think every family and every individual has to evaluate what's best for them. But we do know by bringing them back into the schools, we certainly are able to provide that type of support, evaluate students in a completely different manner than you can virtually. And I do think that opportunity is needed and to provide the mental health, but also the academic assistance for some students. So, Ms. Larkin, we appreciate you taking the time, but not just today, for partnering with us to ensure that our students and our school district moves forward in the most productive way possible. So,
Do you want to highlight some of the other changes?
yes, I would like to, kind of, and I
I
think.
know that Dr. Hope's acknowledged that he supports the tweaks. I think we all know what the tweaks are, but if you don't mind.
Right. Yes, ma'am. I'll be more than happy to go through directly, but I wanted to start with the appreciation also of all the responses that we've received. I have responded to many. I will try to finish them today, but I also want the people that did take the time, whether by email or public comment, that we do read them, and it did play a part in the recommendations that are being brought forward, but also it takes a part in how the board reacts to the overall decision. The input does matter, but we're compelled to follow many statutory requirements, some of which, the general population may not be aware of. So it's a very difficult situation. There's no doubt that the COVID numbers are far worse today than when the governor closed the schools back in the spring. Absolutely no doubt. Unfortunately, the governor is not in a position or willing to continue that closure now, and it's left up to the local level. But with the local level, we're required to have compulsory attendance by statute of 180 days. So when you look at all the statutory requirements, the input from parents, from employees, from the community, we have to determine what are we going to do as public servants to provide an education for our community. And remember, it is required. All of our students are required to be given a free, appropriate education. And in some cases, parents do not find online to be the very best option for them. So I will tell you to date, and again, our decision and our discussion and my recommendation could change. But I will tell you to date, I am not prepared. Our community and our school district is not prepared to offer complete online out of the gate today. And you're probably wondering, how can you have a differing opinion with that today than you did in March? Well, in March, we had been with our students for 3/4 of the school year. We knew them. We knew which ones needed a device. We knew which ones had a device at home. We could easily determine internet access. It will be very challenging for us to get that same information without any of these students showing up on our campus at all. It's very hard to identify their needs if you've never assessed them directly. Again, there could be situations that happen that will cause us to change our position. But my position today, the preference is going to be to give students an opportunity to either come in 5 days a week, a hybrid option, or completely online. The tweak I am making, we received an outpouring of parents and teachers that would like the elementary schools to also be given the opportunity, just as the secondary schools have, as a hybrid approach, which means they would be on campus 2 days a week, and then they would be home doing their e-learning 3 days a week. They feel that that would give them interaction. It would help them feel more comfortable coming back into the school system. They would be able to interact directly with their peers, but they're not ready for full time yet until they see how this virus is going to play out. So that was not presented in the last workshop. I am recommending that be changed. In addition, when you look at the statute, and I'm going to name the statute so anyone watching can look it up themselves, it's 6A-1.09512. When you talk about the requirement for compulsory school attendance, it does give us some latitude of not requiring 180 days if we're able to comply with the number of hours equivalent that is mandated within the statute. I'm also trying not to extend the calendar year. We can easily do 180 days, and the board could say, start later, and then just go 180 days from then. We will know that that will also cause some problems because there will be many people, i.e. our seniors, that are counting on the end date of the school year to be when the end date of the school year has been planned, for they have college, military, or work plans already determined in some cases. So I'm working within the statute to try to figure out how can we give our teachers a little bit more time, because that was another outpouring that we heard. Could we give our teachers and staff a little bit more time to prepare for these changes that are coming before us. So my recommendation, and again, we don't want to delay or remove anyone's pay or have implications to the budget. So the recommendation would be employee start date would not alter, but the student start date would alter. So I am recommending that the student start date would begin, instead of on August 10th, it would begin on August 17th. And it would give our teachers another week for us to plan and prepare and get their classrooms ready for the changes that we are all going to see put in place for the following school year. So with that, because the board approves the calendar, I have attached the amended calendar to this plan on the agenda as well that would reflect that. So we are looking for those two changes that are different from what was presented at the last workshop. But the other thing I wanted to highlight was the board was very emphatic and clear that they expected facial covering, whether it's a mask, whether it's a shield, but a facial covering is required in all of our buildings. So that is on the one sheet listed to make sure that everyone was aware of that. Also, if you are requiring or needing bus transportation while riding the bus, you would need to make sure that you also had your face covering on. We would be also checking temperatures of all employees before they entered a building, and we would be doing random checks for students. That changed a little bit after talking to Dr. Bensi, because she did say that now what the data is showing is that the effects of students that could possibly have COVID is not showing up as much as temperature, but the loss of smell and the loss of taste. But she still recommended us doing temperature checks, but randomly would be appropriate. Again, I've listed all the instructional plans. So we're given all three levels, elementary, middle, and high, all of the same options. Whether you're pre-K, whether you're sixth grade, it doesn't matter. You can go 5 days a week, you can do a hybrid, or you could do complete e-learning. So you would need to opt in to some of these choices. Your schools will be reaching out to you individually, and parents will have until the 22nd to make their determination. Why by the 22nd? Because we have to schedule and we have to plan and we have to work with the union and the teachers to determine what facet of instruction each individual teacher is going to be teaching. I do want to make it clear, a teacher is not delivering all three of these items. They will be delivering one. They'll either be the face-to-face teacher, the hybrid teacher, or the full-time e-learning teacher. They're not doing all three of these things. So I did want that to kind of be cleared up. So again, these are the options. We have all of the PPE requirements and safety requirements and checks going on. But I do also want to reiterate that if we do have cases or positive cases, that we may need to close a school intermittently to clean. Parents need to be prepared for that and realize, and the community needs to be prepared for that, because they could have employees that are affected, which is why it was so important that we have a community campaign to try to reverse the spread. We want this community to thrive. It will not thrive without our school district thriving, operating, and open. We cannot open if we have infected cases in our buildings. So if parents want their kids to go back to school, They need to wear a mask. They need to follow all the guidelines. If the business leaders want our schools to be open, they've got to help us. They've got to communicate to their staff, to their employees, because the spread isn't occurring within our building. It's occurring in the community when people are off on their own personal measures. We've all got to work together. When you go to the grocery store, when you're going anywhere, we can do some things to mitigate the continued climb. And again, I caution folks, because this is my proposal today. We have another meeting on the 28th. It could be on the 28th. The board chooses to go in a different direction because the increase of COVID cases puts the board in a situation that they have to make a change. So these are the tweaks I've made. This is the proposal. It does comply with the executive order, but not just the executive order. It complies with the statutory compulsory attendance that we're all bound by to deliver. And we are going to work with our employees. We are essential workers. We are public servants. It is a very difficult time to be a police officer, to be a firefighter, to work at Publix, and to also be an educator. But we are a vital commodity in this community. We cannot function as a community if our school district does not function. Those are my recommendations.
I appreciate that. Reverend Golden, would you like to add anything?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Madam Superintendent, for the explanation that has been forthcoming. When I was a boy, I didn't do that right? Okay. When I was a boy, I had an opportunity to go to the circus. And there was a juggler there who was juggling balls. At least that's how he started out. But as the juggler went along, he started juggling balls and knives. And so there were balls and knives that he was juggling. And then he finished. He had laid all the balls down, and he was just juggling knives. And quite honestly, I feel like that's what we've been doing with this decision. We've been trying to juggle knives. It's easy to juggle balls. They won't cut you. But this could really be harmful. So I want to start by thanking you for not giving up. And I don't want us to overlook the fact that even from the first decisions that we made at the first workshop as to what we would support, we have already changed. Having said all of that, if it were up to me and I were the supreme ruler and person in charge of the world, I would not open schools, period. I would not open bars, period. I would not open anything, period, until we had a vaccine. But this is not a perfect world, and we all have to take some risks. The people that work over there at that hospital across the street are essential workers. They take risks. The firefighters and the police officers take risks. The people who choose to have food on their tables and go to work take risks. And so it would appear that the school board in this decision is going to have to take some risks. And the risks that we're taking, we will not bear. The risks that are going to be taken are going to be taken by the parents who have to decide which of the options we offer will best suit their family and their children. And the same thing applies to the employees of this district who have to decide what are we going to do given the options that we have? So I want to commend the superintendent and all of the people who have worked to give us the maximum amount of options. I believe you just brought on the option of elementary school being in a hybrid mode, and that's because a lot of the parents have asked for that. So we have tried to be responsive to the needs of the community in as safe and as a responsible manner as we can. Out of the more than 500 letters, emails, they have come in. The one that struck me most was just one that had 4 words to it. Please keep us safe. Please keep us safe. And that sounds like such a simple concern, but when you deal with who is us, are you talking about students? Are you talking about employees? Are you talking about parents? Who is us? And that makes this an extremely complicated process, because there is no us that is going to be completely satisfied with anything that we do. And I, for one, am on the side of not one child's life is worth it. Not one employee's life is worth it. But to the extent that we have to make a decision, I believe that this is probably as good a decision as can be made to justify the risk of putting that one child's life on the line. It's one thing to talk about a child, but if that one child had to be your child, I wonder how you would feel. I wonder how you would react. I wonder what you would have to say then. And since none of us have the benefit of foresight, you just have to do the best you can with the information that you can. And what I'm most impressed about is that even in the short time that we have had from our last workshop until this workshop, we have been able to adapt. So adaptability, as far as I'm concerned, is what makes this feasible. The fact that we are willing to adapt, and the fact that our parents who are riding around in this brigade out there are caring enough to want to let us know, you got to get this right. You got to keep us safe. And so I'm happy to second this motion that the superintendent has brought. I'm particularly pleased also that she has involved the other stakeholders in the community, law enforcement, the health departments, the county government. So I just feel that this is about as good as it can be, given how dangerous it really is, since we do not have a vaccine, and since we were not prepared to deal with this pandemic, period. Not just the school system, but the whole community. We were unprepared for this. But I would put this school system up against any other institution in saying that we have responded with a full measure of care, consideration, and concern for all of the stakeholders in the school system. And we have acted safely and responsibly. So I'm glad to say I second this motion, and I do hope that we can get a majority of the board members to support what has been presented here. In closing, I just want to say to the chair, thank you. You have admirably presided over probably the most difficult time in the life of this school district. And you sit with 4 other people who have had the opportunity to chair this board, but I'm pretty sure that they would agree that out of all of the challenges that they confronted and out of all of the difficulties that they saw, none have matched what you have had to confront. And so I thank you for allowing us to do this transparently and completely in the concern, completely from the perspective of a concern for the health. We know all of the economic consequences. We know all of the other ramifications that occur because of this. But in the end, it is a health pandemic. And I appreciate the leadership and the stewardship that you have shown in terms of bringing us to this point to where we are going to vote. And so I vote, along with Dr. Hopes, yes, that we submit this proposal to the state of Florida, and that we advocate for its approval. I don't want to just send it up there as a symbol. I really want to advocate for its approval, and that we rely on Attorney Minor, who is our senior here and who has the relationships with not one but two of the regional school board entities in the state, and that we would bring that to bear. We know that Dr. Hopes has a plethora of relationships that he can bring to bear to make this happen here in Manatee County from Tallahassee. And he's very quiet and very unassuming in his way, but it was Mr. Kennedy who wanted to remind you that his sister-in-law's name was Larkin Skinner and not Skinner Larkin.
No, my sister-in-law's name is Jackie Dzelski.
I'm sorry, with the chamber, right? Dzelski, that's right. That was the other name, right? The Z comes first. And so I'm just happy at this point in time, as happy as you can be in the midst of such sorrow, that we're doing a good thing here. And I just, God bless us all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Vice Chair Kennedy.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I have a bunch of stuff, but I don't want to dominate time if there's other people waiting to speak. So I have a couple housekeeping things, and then a couple questions for the board, and then I have questions for the superintendent. But I'll just kind of take breaks, and then if you want to go to somebody else, you can.
Okay, well, the only other person that signed up is Dr. Hopes, and I think,
Mine's real quick.
Okay, I just have a couple things. I'll pass it on, and then I'll just hit my speaker button again
Okay.
when it's required. First of all, I'm getting a few texts and at least one email that says our live stream is breaking up. Obviously,
That's what I've heard. They're working on it.
due to traffic issues. So we apologize for that if you're trying to watch online. We are on Frontier and Spectrum, of course.
Apple TV and Roku.
Thank you. My second question is, can we get this data sheet up on the screen? Because I would like to refer to it, and I would just like the audience to be able to see what I am talking about. And Michelle, while you're working on that, I can go to my next comment. We talked about this briefly at the end of the last meeting, but I just want to be sure. It sounds like we have a majority that's ready to submit a plan. No matter what we think of it, we're ready to submit it. But I just want to make sure that, clarify, we don't have a board majority that's willing to push back on the emergency order from the Commissioner of Education. Okay, we don't. Mr. Minor, if you want to address it when it comes to you, you can, but I don't think we have 3 members that are willing to push back on the order. And that's fine, and that's why we make decisions as a board. Thank you, Michelle. I'll come back to it. I'll come to it in 1 second. No, actually, you can leave it right there, because the stuff that I want to talk about is up there.
Michelle? Let me.
Okay, so we are going to submit a plan. A majority of us, it looks like, want to submit a plan. I'll just say straight up, I don't think I'm going to vote for this tonight for a couple reasons. Number one is that, as you all know, I think we have the authority here, not the Commissioner of Education. If this order had come from the governor, I would have no problem whatsoever with it, because he's an elected official and he's our governor. But from an unelected appointee, I think it carries no weight. But I will go up to the Board of Education meeting tomorrow morning in Tampa, and I will tell him that myself to him in the room, because I'm just really unhappy about the way this emergency order was rolled out. But I won't go into it. We have more important things to deal with tonight. So the first thing Nick, could you bring back up the graphic and then, I just want to cover, thank you. Okay, I'll start at the top left on first day. Number one, at least Palm Beach County that I know of, and Broward that I've read a couple articles, but I haven't seen anything firm. Both of those counties have announced that they are opening school for at least their first quarter 100% online. So Superintendent Saunders, could you talk about why, if you know, how are those counties complying with the emergency order and opening 100% online?
Well, I can't say 100% because I'm not familiar with all of their logistics. I will tell you that some counties in South Florida were still in phase 1. They had not moved to phase 2 from the very beginning of the time that COVID began, and their numbers far exceeded anywhere else. So if that's the plan they have submitted, it does have to be approved by the Department of Education. And remember, there's a couple of things. They ask for certain consideration in our plans. A district certainly can state that. But where they said they would make considerations is when it comes time for our Survey 2 or our FTE counts. If you have any familiarity with how we get our funding in a school district, and most people don't, but our students are counted twice a year, predominantly for the bulk of our state funding. Survey 2 is in October, Survey 3 is in February. And it's calculated based on students being live and present in school during that captured week. In this order, what was stated is that they will give discretion in any students that are choosing to do full-time e-learning within the district because of COVID, and we have a system to capture them within our plan. They will give us credit for those students. That is part of a big consideration and a big caveat in the plan, because never have they given credit to districts for their full-time online students. They're not captured that way. In our survey, we had 4,000 a month ago that had signed up for e-learning. That's give or take $31 million to our budget that they are going to count towards us if we comply with a couple of elements. Number one, allowing students to come face-to-face 5 days a week. Number two, starting in August. Those were the only two considerations. All the other information in the order is statutory language that has been in existence. So those are the things that they're asking for that is not in a statute. But face-to-face brick and mortar operation has always been the operation of a school district, except, you're correct, Mr. Kennedy, when the governor shut it down in the springtime. So, do they have different consideration because they have extreme numbers that never came out of phase 1? Maybe so. The state still has to approve that plan, or if they're not in compliant, they don't have to be in compliant with the plan. They have to do 180 days, and then their FTE will be calculated how their FTE has always been calculated.
Can I jump in and ask a question though?
Sure.
So if I'm hearing you right, and this is part of the problem with the emergency order, it's like a Rubik's Cube that, on the first, after they get through all the whereases, in bold underline, it says all schools must open. Okay, so check off the we've appeased Trump box. And then it moves through all of the caveats, which are, well, but the Department of Health or executive orders. Oh, and of course, local districts will have flexibility in decision-making and so on and so forth. So I've certainly jumped to a couple of conclusions along the way since that order came out that turned out to be wrong because I wasn't reading it correctly. So if we had all kids back by Survey 2 in brick and mortar schools, they would get counted, we wouldn't lose anything. Is that essentially true?
Well, I mean, if you had 100% of your, I mean, survey two traditionally is whoever's there is who's going to be captured. I don't know that you can assume that you're going to have everything settled where 100% of your kids could possibly be back. But in any traditional sense of a school year, you have to do by that statute 180 days. So if a board, you do have local decision making, you can say, I'm going to do 180 days and I'm starting after Labor Day. Statute right now says you can't start before August 10th. Okay. Doesn't say when the last date for you to start in statutory language. It does say you have to do 180 days, an X number of hours per entity to get credit for the year of compulsory attendance. So the board could locally say, we're starting after Labor Day. We're starting October 1. But then you have to do 180 days from that day and to comply with this statute. Has nothing to do with the executive order. It has to do with existing statute language.
Which leads me to my next question then. If we were to, take a look at Sarasota just this afternoon. I don't think they ever approved anything, but the conversation they left off with, because they, like us, they have another meeting before this deadline for submission on July 31st, but Sarasota was having a conversation about pushing teachers back 1 week to August 10th and pushing students back to August 24th. One of the board members, I think it was Eric Robinson, suggested, I forget, but one of the Sarasota board members suggested pushing students back to August 31st to give them even more leeway, and then still doing the normal 80-day calendar, which, as I said last Thursday, with the wiggle room we have in June, I know there's concerns about paychecks, and we can talk about that again, and I know that is besides the health and safety of our employees, making sure they have a livelihood is right up there with it. But I still believe we could push back. We have that issue to deal with. You and I talked about it, that with our extra half hour from the mill extension of the school day, we've got wiggle room there.
That's how I was able to absorb the 1 week.
And that's how you got it here. Thank you. I was just about to say that. That's how you got it here. I just really feel like, I said last Thursday that, let's push back to Labor Day. I got that wrong. We can start in August and still be in compliance with the bogus emergency order. But I personally, I would like to see us push back as far as we can, because since we met last Thursday, numbers are getting worse than when we were here 5 days ago. So I know some of that's probably the July 4th bump from people out socializing and not taking care, and here we are again worrying about this. But that would be my preference. That's part of the reason I'm not going to support this tonight, is because we do have one more meeting. I think it's good to update the community with the new details. I think we should do that as much as we can. Have a I'm sure it's already up there, a page on our website with any updates or conversations. But anyway, that's what I'm in favor of. I really think we can find a way to do it. We all got a really great email from one of our teachers, Jason Troop, after our last workshop, which laid out a really smart plan for training. And I know the superintendent's already on this page because she's already talked about it. But it pushes back the opening of brick and mortar schools as far as we possibly can, because I feel the same way tonight I did as I did at the workshop last Thursday. I just really think it would be irresponsible, just based on science, based on our health insurance fund, based on our people, our students, first and foremost. So I'll get off my soapbox for now. I do want to come back because I want to share some questions that we got over email. And I do want to thank the literally hundreds of people that weighed in on this. It's amazing how quickly public opinion is shifting in the face of what we're seeing. So even people who thought something 2 weeks ago, they have done a complete 180. There's still some holdouts out there, and that's their prerogative. Nick, could you bring the flyer back up, please? And then I'll pass it on after this.
And Ms. Messenger, can I just make a point that he said. Mr. Kennedy, we can definitely, I tried to comply not to extend the school year for students or employees, and fall within the minutes here. You do have discretion as a board. If you want to have the start date for employees to start later, that means you do have to delay in money because they're not working yet, because you're paying them longer. And you can delay, you can delay the students coming in and just count the number of days from the time they start. You can also delete some of the other days we're out to absorb another week. You've got time in Thanksgiving break, you've got time in Christmas break. I tried to make a decision that wasn't going to alter or cause another ripple, so I took the low-hanging fruit to make that decision. If the board as a whole wants to back it up by the order, for compliance of the order, it's a start date sometime in August, so 31st for the students is in compliance with the order. You just have to do your 175 days because I was able to absorb 5. You will have to do 175 days from that date to match the statute. Has nothing to do with the order.
Okay. I just have a question and then a point about the flyer, and then I'll pass it on for now. Under the masks and face shield section, there's a bullet point down on the bottom that says a mask waiver will be available. I mean, literally, unless somebody has a note from a doctor that says this student or employee cannot wear a mask, I do not support that bullet point at all.
Mr.
And I don't know what
Kennedy,
doctor would give them a note that says wearing a mask is like medically.
what we put in here was they wouldn't have to wear a mask, but they would have to wear a face shield.
Oh, okay. Well, if we're going to put out something
That-
for public communication, I think we should make that clear because we're going to all the.
That's what the waiver stipulates. So mask
okay.
may cause, made it very clear in it that you guys wanted a face covering. So what we've provided were the mask. If they can't wear a mask, then we've allowed that, but a face shield will be worn instead upon written consent that you cannot wear a mask.
Okay.
So we thought that that would be adequate if you,
Okay. No, my fear, and I think we should include that. That's very clarifying and good information. I think it just should be on this.
put that
piece.
in the
If we're
bullet
going
in
to
there.
put that out publicly,
Okay.
because we're going to get the, I've got a fake card that I printed up, and I don't have to wear a mask, people coming to school. The other thing I just want to highlight on, because people who are trying to watch the stream may have missed this, and I think this is really important, and the superintendent has already mentioned it, but due to a lot of parent feedback, there, as Dr. Hope said last Thursday, there is a lot of fear out there among parents. We heard in volumes since that workshop from parents and teachers and staff and grandparents about having an elementary hybrid option. So I just wanted to highlight, in case anybody did not hear that, or I just say it multiple times, it sinks in, that if you are an elementary parent, the hybrid option will be available. I think that's a really important and good and positive development. I just wanted to go back and highlight that. Madam Chair, I'll pass it on, but I'll hit my speaker button again.
Okay,
Thanks for the opportunity.
just to be fair, since everyone's gotten to go around, I'm going to go to Mr. Minor, and then I'll start back with Dr. Hopes. Is it okay? Okay,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Minor.
I also want to reiterate to the community, the 500 or so messages.
Can you make sure that you're close to your microphone? Because I don't think anyone can, there you go.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank the community's interest in taking the time to share their thoughts and feelings with me, and I'm sure the other board members about this most important issue that's facing us. The title calling this communication an order from on high is without authority, statutorily or constitutionally. But so what? It did open up by its rhetoric the opportunity, for doing some things, and by our submitting a plan. I think it's very important to let it not use the words that we comply with the order, because it's our Commissioner of Education, even the governor, doesn't have authority for running the school district of Manatee County. It's the 5 of us. We can't use them as an excuse for what we are going to do. And what we are going to do is something that we have to do. We're in charge of the education. We have to make decisions about the education in Manatee County. Good, bad, the decision flows from us. What I think is the most important thing is the safety of our workers and our students. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. We are in the education business, however, trying to provide in as safe a way as possible, for that education, safe as possible, again, for the students and for the employees. The plan, as described by Board Member Dr. Hopes and lauded by Board Member Reverend Golden, both very eloquently, fairly, and succinctly, and put together by our superintendent, reflects a lot of work and understanding of the challenge that faces us. The feeling I came into the meeting, and I apologize for being a little bit late, was, boy, this is a terrible time to be voting on this when we have, not only in our community, maybe particularly in our community, but around the state, this drastic, elevation of the influence of this pandemic. And I had several communications of why, oh, why right now? And I have that feeling in me. And I think I'm reflecting some of the feelings that Board Member Kennedy was expressing. Why are we talking about bringing students and teachers and employees together when it seems to be escalating all around us? And wouldn't it be better if we were to wait a week or two and try to take away otherwise vacation days around Christmas or the spring? I don't have any objection to that. And then go ahead and employ this plan. I remember in the communication from the commissioner, there was some explicit language about the 180-day requirement would be waived. And okay, if we don't get it, we don't get it. I think that, from an attorney standpoint, I look at responsibilities and liabilities. And my approach to that is, okay, somebody does come down with this. And when you have as many students as we have, when we have as many as employees as we have, trying to prevent, every single employee and student from coming down with this and suffering greatly is a heck of a challenge. And fortunately, we have a great superintendent who has worked with many to try to make it so not one employee, one student comes down, with us. And I guess my sort of defense, if that were to occur, is that here is our record of trying to do everything possible on earth that we can think of, consistent with all of our duties, to make it a safe environment for working and for learning. And I think our superintendent has about these plans. And I think it's wonderful that she's gone out to explore with other environment workers, our community environment workers, to help make the community a safer place. Unfortunately, our governor, our state government has not been responsible in many ways, to deal with this. I'm being very blunt with it. What we do in our community, in Manatee County, is affected by everything around us, around the state, and people coming in and out. And we can't do that much about what's going on in our bordering counties or people passing through. It's a statewide thing, and really it hasn't been addressed sufficiently, as I think this rise in infections reflects. And that's what's causing me pause. I have great faith in what we're doing. I don't have faith in what's going on outside our community. But are we doing, in light of that, should we wait, a week or two? I don't have any objection to that. I think this is a heck of a plan, but would be nice if we had a better time, to do that. I support the plan. I don't like the time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Dr. Hopes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to go back to the superintendent's presentation. Mr. Kennedy touched on it. And Superintendent Saunders, I believe in the presentation, which was kind of like a modification of our workshop, on slide 13, I don't think it makes it clear to the public that pre-K through 6 has the hybrid option, because the description on the slide for 5-day live instruction says, please note, students and parents will have the option to attend school 5 days a week or continue full-time e-learning.
Right.
So I would,
This was our
Right,
original
right.
one, but thank you for pointing it out. I will update the PowerPoint and attach that to the board so that.
yeah, especially for the public, I think. And then the other thing I would suggest is whatever the default is, make it clear to the public that whichever grade it is, the default is hybrid, the default is 5 days a week, and so that they clearly understand what their opt-in options are. And that would just be, I think, page 15 and slide 15 and slide 13 would take care of it. Because I think, as Mr. Kennedy said, it was clearly articulated, but people are going to defer to whatever's on the website, whatever's printed, and I think it needs to be clear. And Mr. Kennedy, you made a comment, and I kind of like the comment, that if a parent wants to get a waiver with regards to personal protection, face coverings, mask, that they probably should have the child's physician basically provide written documentation that we can put in the child's record that it was the physician that is basically, writing the request, writing the order for whatever medical or emotional reason this child should not be required to protect other students from that child. My concern with the option of a face shield, and the superintendent and I had this conversation, understand this is an airborne virus. The face shield protects droplets from being spread by the wearer. It does nothing for the virus that is being expressed out of the lungs into the air to be circulated in the classroom. And that's why it's important, even if our classroom educators are wearing a face shield, they still need to wear a mask, and it really needs to be an N95 rated mask to protect from that. So I agree with Mr. Kennedy's comments that it should require a physician's written request or order in order for a child to deviate from the CDC guidelines and recommendations. And regarding the calendar, I would not want to take days away from the winter break and the Thanksgiving break, and I'll tell you why.
Thank you.
With having the full week for Thanksgiving, that is 9 days pretty much at the beginning of flu season where our schools will be emptied out for that 9-day period of time. And I believe, given the what I'm seeing around the world and in the United States, that this community is going to need a 9-day period around that time where we don't have children in school. And I want to just run some numbers by you that I had expressed before and I had discussed with Dr. Bensey and her team back in early March. And I've rerun the calculations based on the 2020 population estimates for Manatee County. And if we have all of our students in school, if we have all of our bus drivers riding buses, and we have our substitute teachers, our part-time employees, we basically, every given day, have about 58,500 people within our school district community. If each of those individuals only has contact with 4 other people in the community a day, and that's not much. If you think about how many people you normally would have contact with, 4 is not many. That means that our school district population would have contact with 61% of the entire population of Manatee County every day. And so for that reason, I think we need to stick with our holiday schedule, because I think we're going to need that 9-day break where our community is not congregating in our 66 buildings or whatever, and then going out in the community. And the same thing with Christmas. I think we're going to need that full winter break for a breather and to decompress the potential spread of this, moving into those holidays. So whatever we do, I would not want to take days away from those scheduled holidays for that reason, because I think epidemiologically, we're going to need that decompression of concentrating students. And I believe our staff, our teachers are going to need it as well. I think, that aside from the fact that the superintendent made it clear, I know we've all heard it from a lot of our classroom educators, that they don't see how they can do all 3 of these options. That really, if you're going to be a hybrid, basically faculty member, that's all you're going to be doing. You're not going to be doing 100% online on top of that. You're not going to have to do that mental gymnastics and be taxed with that. So I think that was an important point that I think we also need to clarify in our proposal for the plan. And I do think this is a sound plan, and I think that we are going to have this conversation again more than once, because data's going to change. Mr. Kennedy brought it up. We are only seeing the beginning of the effect of the 4th of July holiday. If you remember, it kind of started on Friday, the 3rd. And so if you look at the incubation period, we've got another good week, possibly 2 weeks of seeing the full ramification of that 4th of July holiday, which I agree with you, Reverend Golden. If I had children in school today, knowing what I know with my background, I wouldn't be sending them to school. I mean, that's the bottom line. I would not be sending them to school. That being said, we have given parents a full array of options to meet their individual needs and the desires of their family. And I think that's all we can do, in addition to everything that we can possibly do operationally and materially to ensure that we protect our staff and our classroom educators. It's not going to matter whether children are in brick and mortar classes if we don't have healthy, well educators to teach them. And I've had conversations with Mr. Wagner and setting them up so that those full precautions can be there. But make no mistake, we will continue to have these discussions. We will continue to exert our authority with regards to what is necessary and what is in the best interest of our community, our children, our students. I'm anxious to see them again too. But delaying it any more than we've already delayed it is just delaying the inevitable. And I do think we need to get the students in, and we need to get our staff together, and we need to do those assessments so that we can really plan for continuing the incredible academic momentum that we have enjoyed since Superintendent Saunders has sort of taken over the ship. So thank you, Madam Chair. I commend you. This has been a difficult and challenging time. Mr. Minor, don't worry about being late. You had a whole parade you had to break through to get here. I mean, I had to show the police officer my ID. He says, Dr. Hopes, I know who you are, but I was told I have to check everyone's ID. So I had to get out, go to the back, you know. So we got the message. We've heard from the public. We've heard from our staff. And we're all trying to do the best job that we can, the superintendent, her staff, and the five of us. And you know, I think we've done the best job that we can do, given the time schedule that we are working under. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Reverend Golden?
Madam Chair, you haven't had an opportunity to say anything at all.
I was really actually interested in what everyone else had to say.
All right, that's fine. I don't mind going forward. June 5th, 1944, Dwight David Eisenhower had set a deadline as to whether or not they would launch what we now describe as D-Day. And well, we know how that turned out. But his prayer was that between the time he made the decision and the time that that decision could not be reversed, that he did not realize that he had made a mistake. He could live with making the decision. He could live with winning or losing as a result of the decision. But between making the decision and executing that decision, he didn't want anything to happen that would cause him to regret his decision. And on the night of the 5th, one of the biggest North Atlantic storms that had ever occurred happened. And so there he was. And I remember the story because he said all he could do was pray. Because the thing that he had asked not to happen had happened. The storm had arisen. And by all reckoning and all military understanding, the invasion should have been called off. But instead, he prayed. And at about 4 o'clock in the morning, the storm broke. And of course, D-Day was undertaken. They went across the French Channel, and of course, the rest is his history. We are at the morning of our own health D-Day. There is no doubt that families are suffering economically. There is no doubt that there are a lot of ancillary consequences to this. But the bottom line is the world has been beset with a virus that the world has not come to grips with dealing with. You just can't. And so now we walked out of our classrooms at the fourth quarter of last year. The kids went home. They stayed home. The summer has come and is now about to go. And the question is, well, do we wait 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks, a month? And all of the science says, and nobody really wants to deal with this, all of the science says, no, this is a year and a half before we get to a vaccine. And I don't want to talk about all of the mismanagement and all of the political machinations that are going on and all of the character assassinations that's taking place with respect to our health officials. But we still have a battle to wage. You can wage it now, or you can wait until the storm comes and goes. Or you can believe that the same strength that brought us to this moment, when we walked out of the classrooms last March, we were going to go back in April, and we're going to go back after Easter, and then okay, let's don't try to go back, but we're definitely going back in September or in August. That was what we said in March. I remember, and now we are in August, or approaching August, and that fear, that trepidation, is there. Now, I would suggest that we have given this as much as we can possibly give it. I appreciate all of the nuances that have been tweaked and all of the additional input. All of that's good. You can always improve it. But the question before us is whether we are going to go to war. This is war. Are we going to war? And I would pray that, notwithstanding the fact that there are going to be casualties, so far, we have been blessed. We have been able to fight this war without fatalities in the school system. But we know that our brothers and sisters in law enforcement, in other areas of the community, in other businesses, we know that there have been fatalities. We know that we have in the state of Florida the highest spike in one day in the entire country for this whole epidemic. We know that's what war is. We're going to have pain. And waiting and delaying is not going to make the pain go away. One thing makes this pain go away. Someone says, Eureka, we have a vaccine. Now, if I had my choice and could afford it and had no other consequences to consider, not only would I not send my children to school now, I wouldn't let them go to school until someone said, here's the vaccine. We don't live in a world like that. And we cannot close our eyes and turn our backs because the battle ahead is dangerous. We've got to confront it as best we can and move forward. And so I'm just hoping that that the political winds that are blowing, and let me parenthetically here say, I don't have any more faith, confidence, belief in the Commission of Education to enter this order than I do in the chef at the Waffle House doing it. I mean, that's where it is. But by the same token, that's not really what the war is about. His authority is not really what this war is about. What's really, and we know the reason he put the order in is because the governor didn't have the courage to do it himself. I said it.
I'll second that.
Yeah, he didn't have the courage to do it himself. So you do it, and he did it. And neither one of them have done or said anything to help us with the war in Manatee County. I'm just thankful that we are at least of a predisposition not to be afraid to go to war. Because I don't have a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. That's where I come from. And so I pray that we'll get the 3 votes. I would really pray, and I don't mind saying it, I pray that we have a unanimous vote so that the people in the community can have confidence in the stewardship and the leadership. This is not about the politics. It's not about the economics. It's not about the differences of opinions about whether or not we should wear masks or not. This is nothing less than some people are still going to die from this. And too many already have. Now, we can't do anything about those that already have. We were unprepared. That's just it. But we can do something as much as we can to make sure that we have done in the past, we don't continue to do in the future. And the only thing that we can do that would be more dangerous than what we're trying to do is nothing. And that's what delay is. Nothing. So I pray that we will take this vote tonight, that we will authorize our superintendent, and I think that's a very important consideration. The people that are wanting us to do nothing, the people that are wanting us to act rashly and hastily are in Tallahassee, and they're going to do everything they possibly can to drag this out, to make this a problem. I know that. I don't have any confidence whatsoever in Tallahassee or Washington, not right now. We are the last best hope of the people in this community. And so we need to give you as much time as you need to get a plan up there and approved. Not wait till the 28th, because isn't the deadline the 31st? Yeah, so I don't want to wait till the 28th for us to have another meeting when in fact after we get it approved we can change it anyway. But we got to get something that allows us to go to war. Something that says this is our D-Day and we're going to stick with it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I feel bad for anyone that has to follow that. And it's, guess what? Vice Chair Kennedy.
You sure you don't want to go?
I'll wait until we go around again, just to be fair, and then I'll go. And I do have a question and I have something to say.
Okay, I want to be fair to you. Mr. Minor, I think you said it well. I support the plan, but I don't support the timing. And I can't vote for something that puts kids back in school on the 17th, at least as of where we stand with the virus today. One thing I asked Dr. Bensi, let me save Dr. Bensi for 1 second. Given the situation we're in, I think the superintendent and the leadership team have really put together a great idea. Their hands have been tied, they've been forced to open schools, and so superintendent has adjusted and offered hybrid for elementary. I think that's a huge step in the right direction, because I was very nervous about elementary school campuses having 100% capacity in the same place at the same time. But until I hear from Dr. Bensi, because I asked her last Thursday, do we have any Florida DOH metrics by which they will deem it's safe to reopen schools? Whether it's, Dr. Hobson, maybe you can address this, but like, is it positivity rates? Is it hospitalizations? Is it ICU beds? Sorry for touching my mask. I'm trying, everybody, I'm trying. But still, an imperfect mask is better than no mask. I would like to hear from Dr. Bensi when she does get those metrics from the state on where we as a county and a community should be with our COVID rates. Superintendent Saunders, is that true? If we submit a plan tonight, can we resubmit another one before the deadline?
I would presume that we can certainly amend or alter it based on circumstances.
I would assume so too.
I would assume even after the deadline,
Right.
that if circumstances change and the board has to make a decision, we can have an emergency meeting and do so. I would certainly feel that would be acceptable. I think they're asking us to make a plan based on circumstances today to the best of our ability. I think we'll have numbers by the 22nd of who's choosing what option, so I'll know how full each school building is. And it may be based on that I come back and ask on the 28th for some adjustments to the plan based on elevation of rates or other considerations. So, yes.
Speaking of, let me do one quick caveat. On the fact sheet, I think that would be a really good thing to add to instruct parents starting tonight and tomorrow morning to contact your school and tell them what option you want.
Principals will be at a K-12 meeting with me tomorrow going over, but right thereafter, yeah, absolutely. But I'll put that information on.
It says it in the white on the side, that to contact your school for whatever option you
Oh,
want.
okay, I completely missed it because
But it is kind of
I'll
an
bold it,
interesting
yeah,
location, but
I'll
it is there.
maybe bold it so that it's more prevalent. So.
it is. Thank you, Gina. Yeah, it is there. Thank you very much. As is the bus number, which I missed too. Okay, I just wanted to be clear about that. Reverend Golden brought it up. I just wanted to confirm that that was the case. It seems like common sense. I just wanted to confirm. And we will have to change. We will have to reassess. We will have to change the plan. And God willing, this state and this community, we get our act together and we behave in the way that we're supposed to behave. Sorry. So that we can knock these numbers down and we can get back to school, because that's what all of us want. No matter what you feel about this virus and you feel about these mitigation measures, we all want the same thing, was to get all of our kids back to school, doing everything that is great about school, whether it's social, whether it's academic, where it's, you know, getting proper care and nutrition and services. I mean, that's all any of us want. So please, hopefully this community effort that we're going to put together, and, you know, this common communication will move the needle, because this, as we all know, the sooner we do that, the sooner we can get open. But yeah, I at this moment tonight, I am not comfortable with kids back in the building. Even on the 17th, I appreciate the superintendent moving, you know, and talking me through it as we were leading to tonight's meeting, kind of checking in with me to say, hey, like, this is my idea. I think we might be able to do this. And I keep coming back to her and say, for me right now, it's still not good enough. But Superintendent Saunders, I do really appreciate the communication to me individually and trying to work with us. I know, you know, I know you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. So I don't begrudge you anything just because I don't like the 17th return date. I do want to say one thing about the calendar, Madam Chair, and then, I just took a look, and if kids were to come back on the 24th, that would mean we finish school on June 11th. And that does push, you know, 11 days into June, but I think, considering what the seniors of 2020 have been through, I think the seniors of 2021 would find that a small price to pay, if we can find a way to do it. And then finally, to Reverend Golden's point, or to support what I think I heard Reverend Golden say, is, you know, we can, as we go through this month, look at what the plans being submitted by other counties. They can learn from us, we can learn from them, and improve as we go. And I'll stop there. Madam Chair, I do want to come back one more time, because we had some kind of common questions that we got in the hundreds and hundreds of emails. And so I would just kind of like to share those with the superintendent, because you just can't answer every email in detail. So I think some of these kind of burning questions that were threads running through a lot of emails, I'd like to come back and address to finish my piece anyway. So thanks.
Okay, Mr. Minor?
Right. I'd like to hear from the, excuse me, I'm told that through my mask, I'm not coming through well, you know, to the community. I'm not here to defend the fame and expertise of the Waffle House chefs, but I will say, I think they're awfully good, and they always call me Sweetie, so I go there. As far as the timing goes, we've heard good arguments with respect to the downside of delay. I think that Board Member Dr. Holtz, you know, expressed that. Board Member Kennedy is saying, not really. And I still feel that where we are at this time makes me feel very uncomfortable of flashing the green light, even though we have a great plan, to work with. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. I have a question. And it's really goes back to privacy concerns, in particular to students that pick the hybrid. I know that there's a lot of parents that are cautious about their child being filmed, and there was a lot of concerns that I've heard about children's privacy in the hybrid model. Can you tell me how you would, I mean, I know this is like a fine-tuned detail, but can you tell me how you plan to enact that and keep students' privacy during that?
Absolutely, and I believe probably the concern would be the live type of video camera being on, so that the child or all the children in the class are able to see the pictures of everybody in the class doing the work as well as the teacher. But of course, you can always elect to turn the camera off. So if you're the recipient, if you're a student there, and your parent or you had a specific concern, that all only would need to be identified or communicated to the school of that particular issue. Could very well be that during that class discussion, the child's camera would not be on. However, they can see the teacher. So if there is a whole class discussion, you could prevent that from occurring. So then they would just have different times where the camera would be on, where the teacher could actually see the child individually and have those conversations. So we could easily protect that if a parent did not feel comfortable with all of the peers seeing that, because I've seen a couple of things that they, would not want other outsiders possibly to view. There is a way that you can easily convey and communicate that, and that camera could be turned off for that child for the big group discussion. The child's voice is heard. They can type in questions as well and participate, but we can easily make sure that we're helping or identifying the privacy of the individual if that's needed. So we will work directly with those individual parents and students.
Okay, so that kind of answers half of my concern, but the other half of my concern is the kids that are in the classroom. So in the hybrid model, my understanding is that some kids would be at home for those couple days, and other kids would be in the classroom.
Correct.
So I understand the privacy concern of if my child is at home, I can turn off the camera and still participate. But if my child is in the classroom, and I do not want that child to be recorded.
Those students aren't viewed. The
Okay.
only person that will be viewed could be the teacher.
Okay,
The children sitting across in the class in their desk are not viewed. No.
okay. That I think those are really valid concerns, and I want to make sure those get addressed. I don't want anyone to not pick the hybrid option because they're afraid of privacy concerns.
Right, yes, understood.
So I just want to make sure that that's really clear. That was really, I think, my only question. I do support you starting a week later. If there was a way to make it another week later, I would support that, but I hear Reverend Golden's argument of why delay also. So, I support moving forward with this plan as is right now. If you believe that we can make another week work, I would support that as well. But my support for pushing it back is not about the virus as much as it's about giving time for our teachers in order to plan properly for this coming school year. Let's be honest, we really do not know what the school year is going to look like, but I do know that we are asking an immense amount from our teachers. We are asking them to change the way they do just about everything. And I would, as a teacher, I would want the time to plan in collaboration with my school's leadership. And that's a really important piece to this. I want to make sure that this additional time is allowing the teachers to plan in collaboration with their schools, because this is going to be a school-wide system for each school. Each school needs a team. And we know it's not going to be a perfect school year, but I would really rather allow a little bit more time for employees so that they feel comfortable with all that is being asked of them. I truly believe that we should not rely on the politics. I agree with that. I think that's been said 10,000 times. I don't think I need to say that again. But I do think we should rely on facts, data, and science. I think we should listen to the CDC, and I do believe, and I really appreciate the superintendent working hand in hand with the local health department. My dad worked for our local health department for decades. He did a multitude of programs and was actually an epidemiologist for foodborne illnesses. So I really appreciate the work that our health department does. And I do believe that whatever we enact must be practical and realistic. So I'm going to state this one more time, and then I promise you'll never hear it from my mouth ever again, because I think I've said it every single meeting we've had. But I really do not believe we should be mandating masks all day. I have multiple reasons that's not going to be practical, and it's not actually following what our health department stated at our last meeting. I would like to remind the board that at the last workshop, the health department said they supported the superintendent's plan, and that plan allowed for individuals to wear a mask when social distancing was not possible. That plan included the use of many other measures, such as plastic dividers. One concern that I have is that the mask gives a false sense of security. And what I mean by that is, I believe they are effective. I'm wearing one because the board has made it clear they want to support this, so I am supporting the team and what the board wants. But it can give a false sense of security. The mask can be effective if it's used in conjunction with many other pieces, such as cleaning surfaces, good hygiene, and distancing. However, I have seen all too often when someone has a mask on and they no longer follow the rest of the CDC's recommendations. So that's why I'm asking that we focus on training. That's what I brought up at the last workshop. I wish that instead of so steadfastly focusing on masks, we would steadfastly focus on training our employees and students about all of the things that we can do to stay healthy. I also believe that parents and teachers deserve a say in wearing this medical device. Teachers should have a say in their classrooms, and parents should have a say when it comes to their child. I am grateful that the superintendent will create a formal process for those parents and teachers, and I support the doctor having a say in that. I think that is completely reasonable. But I think that when it comes to parents and that pertains to individuals and medical needs and ESC, I think that parents should have a say in that, and so should the teachers. So while I do not agree with that particular aspect of this plan, I do agree with most of the plan. The plan allows for parents to have a choice from e-learning to hybrid to completely in-person learning. That will allow for teachers to have many of their health concerns. It will give them the opportunity to perhaps work through e-learning, which I think is something that I know the superintendent will work with the union to address. And to me, it's a way to keep everyone as safe as possible, given the circumstances that we're in. Ultimately, I would rather err on the side of caution. Education is essential to a free society. And I would like for us to focus on the best, most effective, and safest way to deliver that education. That is why we are all here. I believe that the plan recommended by the superintendent takes a lot of feedback, research, and data into consideration. And like I said, I do not agree with the addition to the plan that the board has made. Based on the conversation tonight, I think it will pass. And I'm also aware that if I am on the losing end of this vote, I will not be able to bring it back up in the future. And since we do not know what next month will look like, it may get worse, though I pray genuinely that it gets better. I do want to be able to bring this back up should things change. So tonight I will vote in favor of this. I really believe that as Reverend Golden said, I think that our strongest movement forward would be a unanimous support. I think that shows that the entire board is a team and the entire board believes that this right now is the best way we can move forward. If we need to readdress it in the future, I would support that. But I truly don't see a better way to do this at this moment. This offers a lot of options and it offers a lot of protection and safety for our employees. It gives teachers an opportunity to have training and be as prepared as possible. And I really appreciate all of the work that you've done. And with that, Dr. Hopes, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Real quickly, the superintendent, one thing you might want to ask IT about, I know LECOM's Zoom platform, as the professor, I can lock down the class, and that may address some of the privacy concerns, because I have heard from teachers that are a little bit concerned about somebody from the outside getting in. So if
We
we can,
use Microsoft Teams, and it
That allows
is
you to lock it.
complete lockdown. There's no one that can be included that's not been given a direct invitation. So, and that's part of the reason why we use that.
okay. The only other thing before we vote on it, Superintendent Saunders, because part of my motion includes the revised calendar, I just want to make a note one way or the other. The period of August 10th through the 14th, will those all be teacher report days? Will some of them be district in-service?
They will all be tied to training from the district and teacher planning and collaboration.
Okay.
Myself and Ms. Barber will work on what that calendar will be, but part of it is going to need to be able to train in both methods.
I'm just saying right now.
But to give them, right,
It's white. It
yeah,
doesn't-
yes, sir, we will change that to reflect it is complete, training and planning and collaboration for teachers.
So
for
members,
that
just on the calendar that's before us, that's part of the motion, August 10th through 14th will be a teacher reporting day in service, the additional training that the chair mentioned. With that, Madam Chair, are we ready to vote?
I have Reverend Golden, and then I think Mr. Kennedy wanted to get some questions answered.
Okay.
Unless you'd like to call the question.
I would love to call the question, but I don't want to take away my fellow members' opportunity to
I just wanted
make
to
final
know
comments.
what you wanted to. I've actually found this conversation very enlightening.
I think it's important.
Reverend Golden.
Madam Chair, I'd like to call the question.
Oh, look at that.
I second that. I second that.
Okay, there's been a motion to call the question, and it's been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Nay.
Okay.
Mr. Minor, you're the swing vote. Call the question, yea or nay? Come on.
Okay, with some reluctance, I'll make it yay, for the same reasons that you gave. It puts me in a position to bring it back.
Oh, this is just to call the question.
Oh, call the question.
To end
Okay.
debate.
The end, what is it?
Would you like to call the question? Well, you're the swing vote. There's
Well,
two yays, there's two
okay.
nays. Would you like to end the discussion and
there-
call the vote, or would you like to allow Vice Chair Kennedy to ask his questions? That is
will-
really the question.
Okay, I'll vote nay, so Mr. Kennedy.
All right, the motion fails. It was a 2-3 vote, I should say, a 3-2 vote. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No?
Vice Chair Kennedy.
I'll wait with bated breath.
I'll go through these as quick as I can, and yeah, given the volume of email, I think to let these go, I'm glad that vote failed, because I think we would be shirking our duty, but it failed, so let's go. Superintendent Saunders, I'll just direct these at you. And then, Mr. Wagner, one of the ones that I have at the end is about the air circulation in school buildings that I sent to you and you responded to earlier. So if you could, I'll come to you and I'll finish with that one, because I think that air quality issue inside of our school buildings was a hot topic in the question. Okay, Superintendent Saunders, if a teacher tests positive for COVID-19, are they required to quarantine for 2 to 3 weeks?
I believe I've seen all those questions too. We are going to have all of those listed on our fact check sheet on our district website. HR has compiled all of those, and we have protocols already established. So if someone does test positive, yes, we have protocols. The length of time, it's all based on CDC requirements and guidelines. If they come in direct contact with someone, they will have to self-quarantine. Also, depending on where that is, could determine a number of people having to isolate. So many of the numbers that I gave you in my presentation last week were due to either people being positive themselves or coming in contact with a positive person in their private life or elsewhere. So, yes.
Okay. If that does occur, is that covered by sick leave and is it paid? I know that'll be on the HR document, but
Right.
it's a hot question, so I guess we'll wait for that document. If a teacher has 5 classes a day with 30 students each, do all 150 students then need to stay home in quarantine for 14 days?
All of those will depend on, again, the situation of where the positive infected person is and who they've come into contact with, and the proximity of being in contact. If you're positive and you're way over there across the way and you're walking down the hall and you're never coming in direct contact with me, per CDC guidelines, you have no direct infection over me. If you're wearing a mask, I'm wearing a mask, and you're across the room. So we're following the CDC guidelines. If you're in a classroom space with an infected person, all of those people are going to have to self-isolate. Yes.
Even with masks on, an infected person?
If they're in there for a whole span of time, of a period or a day, we will err on the side of caution.
Okay. So those students, even if they have registered for full-time brick and mortar, they have to transfer to e-learning?
Yes.
Okay.
And that really is another reason why I needed a week of time for preparation. I really need to make sure that every teacher is prepared to deliver online at some point in time, even if that's not what they're going to be doing initially.
Okay, no, that does make sense. And having spoken to you about what our kind of new ramped up high quality learning product will look like, I think we will have a robust product that, because a lot of parents and family members are comparing what they think is coming in the fall to the e-learning product or the situation they saw in the spring. And I think as most of us recognize, that was kind of a rushed solution. We did the best we could with what we had. A question about subs, but I'll just save the sub question because they can be rolled into teacher and staff questions. If a teacher is forced to I asked that one. I'm sorry. Will employees and students be required to have a COVID test before school opens?
No, I'm not. At this point in time, we do not have a policy or union guidelines that require that. We do give people the information. They certainly can go. There's many facilities out there in our community that provide free testing, but we do not impose that unless there is a person that has a positive test. Then one of the ways they're able to mitigate that in return to work will be having a negative test after a span of time. But other than those scenarios, everyone being required to be tested before they enter the building or come to work or attend school is not in place.
What obligation are teachers and staff under to report if they or a family member tested positive prior to August 3rd?
It depends on the span of time. If they tested positive in June, May, that's insignificant. If they've just recently been in contact with anyone that's of a positive test, yes, we do need that information forthcoming.
But we don't have a vehicle by which to.
We do. We'll have well,
Isn't the health department involved in the contact tracing?
yeah, they are, and we have protocols in place to screen that and get that information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm getting there. I do want to reiterate that like a lot of these questions take care of themselves if we push the school year back and we improve our situation, so we don't have to worry about a lot of these. If a positive result by an employee, how many negative tests will be required to return to work?
There's two ways to return to work. You can have 2 negative tests, or if you've had 10 days since the symptoms positive test without any type of medication, you're allowed to come back to work. I will tell you what we have found is that in many cases, the test results are coming back a little delayed, and the span of time happens before we get the test results back, is what we have found.
I got tested almost 2 weeks.
So we give them two, right. So we give them 2 ways to get cleared to come back to work, because once you've expired after symptoms, and enough time has passed, you're able to come back.
I'm almost there. Because some of these have been answered in the presentation. Question about masks, question about temperatures, shields have been covered. You've already said we will be adhering to CDC guidelines. Question about supplies, cleaning products. Can school campuses expect that they will be fully stocked? You know, we talked on Thursday about there's some supply chain issues with some of the equipment we've ordered. So what assurances do we have? And maybe we don't have any, but if you could just talk about any supply chain updates or supplies that we're still waiting on.
Certainly. Well, actually, the ones we were waiting on were the thermometers, the digital thermometers, to check all the students, because, you know, our original plan, that was the expectation. Since Dr. Bensi has kind of, you know, over time, they've known that now that's not really the best indicator of a possibly positive case of a student. So that's really not a barrier. We have all the other supplies in. So we have masks, we have shields, we have all the sanitation. So we have everything else. So I really feel we're prepared. And as we all know, we've been running summer school. Now this is week 2. We have 1 more week of summer school. And so we've been using all the protocols in our summer school to date. And it's been pretty effective, so.
Yeah, follow up. Like we're now almost a full weekend. No situations, no cases, no scares.
We had one that didn't come to school or get into class or so forth because they had an illness, but we've not had any after the fact of students or hear about students after the fact at all. No.
Okay. Almost done. A lot of questions about teachers taking leave. Obviously, by the contract, I'm not quite sure what AFSCME looks like, but our employees do have leave available to them. But if you go on leave, you have to do it for the entire year?
Well, at this time, that is not the case.
Okay.
But all those are HR. We are going to hand out and post to principals all of those guidelines and a fact sheet to them tomorrow in our meeting. That kind of gives them the procedure and the process, so the principals and school administrators can answer the questions and guide any of their personnel. They can also seek HR for any questions with that too, but they're also in the union handbook, so it does give the process and procedure. ASME does too, of anyone who needs or thinks that they may want to take a leave due to COVID or health concerns.
Great, thank you. And then Doug, finally, the question about air quality. The question came in about what kind of HVAC systems are we using. Obviously, there's some concerns about recycled or recirculated air as opposed to a system that pulls in outside air. So if you could just kind of address what we're using in our
Absolutely,
buildings.
and that's a great question. So the Florida Building Code, and I have the chapter here in case people want to look it up, chapter 453.15.2, and they have a mechanical chapter 401 and 403 addresses ventilation. So it goes on to speak about CFMs, which is cubic feet per minute. So for example, the minimum order of an air rate for a classroom is 7.5 CFMs. For an auditorium, it's 5. For media centers, music, art rooms are 10. CFM. So I think that on the 10,000-foot view, the question is, is it a closed system or do we pull outside air? Absolutely, we're pulling outside air in our air conditioning systems, which supplements the air that's within inside the classroom. And we will post that on the Q&A with links as well.
Thank you, Doug.
All right, very good, thank you.
Madam Chair, I believe that is it for me. Somebody who's out there watching just texted me that Sarasota is actually pushed back to the 31st, not the 24th. So, just again, you guys know how I feel. I would like to, we'll submit this. Like I said, I can't support it because I'm not comfortable with the 17th. But I know we will be back to reassess and resubmit if we have to. So, thank you.
And ironically, the two people that voted to end the discussion are the two people that have signed up to speak again. Dr. Hopes.
I tried to avoid it, but Mr. Kennedy brought up a couple of issues. And one of, and Mr. Wagner and I have had discussions about looking at the HVAC systems. The one thing, the school construction codes that we follow as a public school district actually require more fresh air exchange than the regular building code. So we actually are bringing in more, and that affects the efficiency. But the other thing that I asked Mr. Wagner to go through is the types of HVAC systems we have in all of our buildings, and to look at what we have in the way of filtration of the air, and whether or not we can increase the micron filtration, maybe not get all the way to a viral filtration, but to be able to filter out more of the particulate in the air, so this recirculating air has less particulate matter in it, i.e. less potential for spreading infection. And with that, the other question that Mr. Kennedy brought up from one of the emails, if you recall when we had the workshop and Dr. Bensey was here and I discussed the strategy of having cohorts of students to try to minimize that as I began to work through a number of various parameters, keeping in mind that we're self-insured for healthcare, these cases can get very expensive. The other advantage of us looking diligently towards creating these smaller cohorts of students is that when, and it's going to be when, it's not if, when we have cases in the school, not only is it contained in that cohort, but we will also have a greater likelihood of being able to trace, God forbid, but it's going to happen. We are going to have faculty that are going to contract this. We already have faculty that are contracting it. If we have these cohorts and they're defined, then we have a greater opportunity and argument for those cases being work comp, which means it will not come out of our self-insured plan, it will go into the work comp. That's the way hospitals and other healthcare facilities do it. When an employee contracts COVID-19, because of the medical record and the documentation of the contacts, they can tell that it was most likely because of a contact within their workplace, and it becomes work comp. Why this is important, it will not be deducted from the employee's sick leave. We won't have to cover the costs through our self-insured health plan. And I think it's very important. It's not just, there are huge benefits from a disease management perspective, because when we have a case, the health department can deal with that cohort, that little cluster of people, and the contact tracing will be easier. But equally important, when a staff member, an employee contracts the disease, and it's going to happen, we have a better argument for that being a work comp case and not a medical case, which saves the employee, because in some cases we already had an employee that was out for almost 2 months. And we need to be able, if there is any likelihood that the case was contracted in the workplace, we need to be able to adjudicate that as work comp so that the employee doesn't lose all of those sick days, and it's not coming out of our self-insured plan, because I don't think we will be able to handle any kind of widespread cases in the health plan. So I spoke with the superintendent, and she's, working on that opportunity. And it doesn't matter whether it's a hybrid student or a 5-day-a-week student, we can still put them in clusters. I spoke with Pat Barber about it. I understand that, we have all this myriad of electives and our high school students but you know what, we may not be able to offer all that. We probably do need to create these cohorts of students to minimize the risk and to, for these other reasons. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Reverend Golden?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make one last, probably futile effort to achieve unanimity here. Madam Superintendent, the start date that you have for the plan that you're going to submit is the 10th of August? Or the,
17th.
The start date for the students is the 17th. Employees will be August the 2nd, as it originally was, but for students, it would be August 17th.
so we already have 2 weeks
2 weeks.
built in for.
Yes, sir. For preparation, planning, setting up classrooms, et cetera.
So when you were talking about having more time with the faculty, with the employees, did you already include that in your consideration of them coming back on the 2nd of August? Or are you wondering whether they are going to have another week beyond the 17th?
They originally had one, so we just added one additional week in there with the delay of the students. I personally feel that that will be adequate at this moment. First of all, they have worked on e-learning for a bit. We are delaying the start of the students by 1 week, and I really wanted to take that into consideration also for the parents that are expecting us to open up. So I was balancing between 2 weeks of training for teachers and also giving them a little bit more time, but also making sure that our students could begin their instruction as soon as possible as well.
And that is on the 17th.
Yes, sir.
So the original workshop and the original plan called for classes
On the 10th,
on the,
to start on the 10th.
and then there was only 1 week before that.
Correct.
Okay, so what you have done already is adapt your plan to add an additional week of planning for the employees that does not do violence to the start date of the students.
Correct. And it does not extend the school year either.
Okay. Is there any advantage in your mind or in the mind of the other stakeholders that you've talked with to postponing the reentry of the children into the buildings by 1 more week?
At this time, the reward is not, you will have other problems by doing that. We will cause ourselves some other undue residual effects. At this time, our recommendation is these 2 weeks and the 1 week delay is sufficient.
Okay, then I'll ask you the question that I really want to ask.
Okay.
When is the drop dead date for you to change your mind? When is, if we vote on this tonight, when would you have the opportunity, or when would you, how much time would you need to either reconsider or to confirm this decision that we're about to make tonight? Would
Well,
that-
I'll make it really easy for you.
Okay,
I do think we need the extra week anyway, so I don't think we should start on the 10th regardless.
No.
So I think that's needed. You have another meeting, like Mr. Kennedy has already expressed, on the 28th, I believe, of this month. So if at that time we see that things would be supportive of need to delay it again beyond the 17th, I would be more than happy to bring that up at that time. Because not only is it giving us enough time, remember, we've got to make sure that parents have enough time to make the adjustment. Teachers have enough time to make the adjustment. I mean, they're going to be fine if they're in there working, but there's a lot of considerations if we're bringing them back and the students aren't, and you've got to take them to another week or so on the back end of the school year. So I would think that would be the last day for consideration to back up the student start date beyond that day. Because you have to give the community and employees time to make arrangements with their workplace. So the 28th would be a time that we could revisit that if the need appeared, for us to bring that topic back up.
Is your recommendation, though, that notwithstanding that we could take a vote at that time, that we submit this plan as it is, would we have to go back and amend that plan to the state, or could we do that here?
I do not believe that would have any bearing on the plan. If I submit the plan today with all the details in, all that I would need to do if we change the start date of students, as long as it was in the window, I could just easily send a one-page update. It wouldn't be an amendment to the whole plan because it would still be in compliance.
It would be an update that we would vote on and decide on the 28th.
Right.
Okay. Okay, I think I've done all I can possibly do to try to achieve unanimity tonight. Because what I hear you say is that the concerns that's been raised about postponing the start date of the children can be sufficiently addressed, in your opinion, on the 28th at that meeting.
Well, I'm not sure that I understand what you're stating.
I'm
Our
saying-
concern of the start date on the 17th is adequate, but we do need a decision today with what you want to do for the sake of the employees. If you want, there is plenty of time on the 28th if we feel that we need to adjust this, that we can,
For the students.
for the students, yes.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent, and thank you, Madam Chair, and I am done as a Thanksgiving turkey.
Well, Vice Chair Kennedy signed up to speak again.
I won't be long. I won't be long. That just brought up a point that I kind of just want to share something that I heard at the Sarasota meeting this afternoon, and then a quick call to action. Their interim superintendent, and I apologize, I forget her name. One of the board members asked about this question that we're talking about, and you talked about it last week, about if we push teachers back, then we start running into not meeting that first paycheck that teachers and staff will be expecting. So, is it Mitzi? Is that? Okay. Their interim superintendent, and I apologize, Madam Superintendent, for forgetting your last name, informed their board that there's actually a Florida statute around FEFP, and that school districts are not allowed, even if we wanted to, like, for example, give our employees, like, hey, we'll just start paying you, but you don't have to work. And she said there's a statute that says we cannot do that. That's fine, I understand. But we, since March, have seen executive orders and statutes thrown out the window willy-nilly. So that is just really another executive order that we need to give us flexibility. So everybody out there, excuse me while I fix my mask, I'm sorry, imperfect, still better than none. Is all of you folks who have called and texted and emailed, especially the emails, please email the governor, email Richard Corcoran, the Commissioner of Education, email Jacob Oliva, the Deputy Commissioner of Education. He's an education guy. And just ask them for flexibility for school districts so that we can be agile and nimble in dealing with this virus. I really appreciate all the public comment. Emails were a full-time job for the past 3 or 4 days, and I don't mind. It was a lot, but I never mind hearing from folks, especially when it's an issue of health and life and death potentially that this one is. So please reach out beyond your school board. Continue to reach out to your school board, but we need that flexibility from the state if we're going to. If this virus is going to keep going up, we're going to need flexibility. Hopefully, this is our new high point, and we're going to flatten the curve again from here. And we're going to be able to open August 17th for students as we can. But Reverend Golden, I appreciate the attempt for unanimity, but I still can't do it because I can't vote yes on a return on August 17th, which at this moment right now, I don't feel comfortable with. So I appreciate it, as always. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Reverend Golden.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
Calling the
I
question.
was on the losing end of that last vote, right? So I can bring it up again? Oh, no, the prevailing end.
That works.
Oh, okay.
I would like to call the question, Madam Chair.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
I don't think you need to. I think we've all talked it out. I really
Failed for
appreciate,
lack of a second.
I really appreciate all the conversation. I'm going to call this to a vote. We are on to the approval of the reopening plans as they've been presented to us from the superintendent with the changes, pushing back the school year start date to August 17th, allowing for more time for teacher planning, allowing for multiple options for families. And I hope that this sheet that was presented to us will be put out there for everyone to see, because I think this is a great snapshot of everything that you're offering here. With that, that is what we are looking at to approve here. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
All right, it passes 3-2 with Reverend Golden, myself, and Dr. Hopes voting in the affirmative, and Mr. Minor and Vice Chair Kennedy voting against. We will move forward. As Vice Chair Kennedy has alluded to, we have received a plethora of public comment. I've tried really hard to respond to every single email I've received. It's been very enlightening and informational. I really appreciate that. But with that being said, it is 7:56, and if there's no other comment, I am going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you all very much.
Madam Chair.